And we are live. It is the first ever episode of the Field of 68 After Dark. If you guys did not see the announcement earlier today, what we are doing for this channel and for this network is every night during college basketball season, we are coming to you live right at 11 o'clock Eastern time as soon as the biggest games, those 9 o'clock tips, end. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. Some of the guys that are going to be on the show, you see right here with me. We have Terrence Oglesby of Clemson. We have Robbie Hummel, who played for Purdue and who works for ESPN, the Big Ten Network, and basically everybody right now. And we have that guy in the bottom right corner. He's a stadium insider. I don't feel like I need to mention his name. He has his jersey hanging up there over his left-hand shoulder. If you don't recognize it, the one and only Jeff Goodman. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
We're good. We're good. All is well. Yeah. I mean, we got Hummel coming back from the zoo in San Diego. We got Terrence Oglesby over there with a real shooter. Thankfully we have one real shooter on this pod because we know Dauster shot like 22% in his career from three. And Hummel, I'm not even going to get into your 3-point numbers.
I'm just thankful we have one real freaking journalist on this.
Hey, I will say this. If Hummel's the best defender that we have on this podcast, we're screwed from the get-go.
We're screwed.
On defense being played either.
Yeah. So the point of doing this show right now is we're unveiling our preseason All-American teams. We have a field of 68 preseason first-team All-American team. And on this show, we are going to be interviewing and talking to each of those 5 guys. I'm not going to tell you who they are just yet. We got a lot of show to get to. Of course, this show is presented by Bet Rivers, our partners over at Bet Rivers. So let's get right into it. This year, the hardest thing for me in putting together these All-American teams this year was the fact that it feels like every good player in college basketball this season is a big guy. And I was torn on whether or not you can put 5 centers on a first-team All-American team, and I don't think that you can. Maybe it's just me. I like having my All-American teams kind of look like an actual basketball team. So I'm curious, Robbie, and why don't you start us off with this? Is the number of big guys, how many good big guys we have in college basketball this year, is this the fact that there are just no jobs for them available in the NBA at this point?
Got to stick around because you can't go anywhere. We've seen it in the Big Ten the last 3 years, and it's just been so many good bigs. And I'm not sure if that's totally the reason, because I still feel like college players, when they're having a good year, big guard, whatever, you leave, and whether you go to Europe or you go to the G League or the NBA, whatever. I agree with you. I don't think you can put 5 bigs on the first team All-American list. I'm not saying you have to go point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center, but I think you have to say, all right, we're going to go 2 guards, a wing, and two bigs, or whatever. You have to have some semblance of a team. So I'm with you on that. I don't think there's a good explanation for why we have so many bigs right now that are good in college basketball, but I think it's just cyclical. I think there's years where there's great guards. I think there's years where there's great bigs. And right now we're in a cycle of really, really good big men in college basketball.
I think it has a lot to do with what you're saying, Rob. I mean, if you look back 10, 15 years, Hunter Dickinson's gone and he's probably a lottery pick. Now he can't find a place to go, obviously. But I'm sure we're going to get into this, but NIL plays a big factor, especially for a lot of these fringe guys. A lot of these guys are probably early second round and mid-second round. Why wouldn't you stay if you can collect some checks up in Ann Arbor? I mean, it makes sense if now that you can make a little bit of money and you can still be the focal point and be the big man on campus, if you will. I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
So yes, I think, especially the guys we're talking about, we're going to talk about, they're all in areas where they can make money, right? A lot of them are Big Ten bigs or Drew Timme, and those guys can make money where they're at right now. So it's really a combo of, Rob, what you're saying, and Terrence, what you just said. It's the fact that they're not locked first rounders. They're probably not even locked guys that are going to get guaranteed deals. So come back, try to improve your stock, make more money than you would playing on a 2-way next year.
Yeah, so you mentioned some of the Big Ten guys. We got Hunter Dickinson. We have Kofi Coburn. We have Trace Jackson Davis. You mentioned Drew Timme. We have his teammate at Gonzaga, Chet Holmgren. We have Paolo Banchero over at Duke. None of those guys are who we determined to be the best big man in college basketball. That would be Drew Timme. Jeff, I know you love him. Talk to me about him. What makes it special? What's the best part about his game, and why, in your mind, do you think he is the Field of 68 preseason National Player of the Year? How about that?
I fell in love with him at the Peach Jam, to be honest. As a junior, I remember tweeting out he was my favorite player to watch that whole summer because he played so damn hard with so much passion, and he gets shit done. He does. I mean, he is super productive inside the paint. He knows what he is. Now, will he continue to know what he is this year? That's going to be the big question for me, because now you're hearing from the NBA, what? You need to be able to step out and shoot the ball from three. He only took about, I think, 25 threes last year. That number is certainly going to increase. And I just hope he doesn't change his game in college. Because, listen, to me, and I'll go with another Zags big guy, Domas Sabonis, okay? And I'm comparing him only in the sense that Sabonis knew what he was in college. And then when he got to the league, then he was able to step out. He worked on his perimeter game while he was still in college, but he understood what his team needed him to do to win. And I hope Drew Timme sticks with that as the core of what he is, because, man, he is brutal to stop in the post.
Robbie, what do you like about his game?
I love his footwork. I love how crafty he is. When he gets the ball in the paint, he can really score the ball. I agree with Jeff, and I think this is the hardest thing as a player. When you go and you get feedback, whether it's with the NBA, whether it's what you're listening to people on Twitter or the outside, they're saying if Drew Timme wants to play in the NBA, he has got to make perimeter jump shots. And I think that at times you can prove that, hey, I can't make perimeter jump shots because I'm out there, I'm chucking them up and they're not going in. So I'm fascinated to see. And there's a lot of guys that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm interested to see when you take the next step and you're trying to be a guy that's a National Player of the Year. Do you stay who you are? Do you evolve? How does it work? And I think Drew Timme, that's a really good question. But I love how crafty he is. I love his footwork. I love his intensity and his passion. They're going to have one of the best front courts in all of college basketball. There's not a question about that. I'm really interested to see how does Drew Timme play with these other guys who are so talented.
And we have Drew Timme coming on here in a second. But, Terrence, we talked about this on our podcast a little bit during the week. How do you see Drew and Chet kind of fitting together in that front court?
Well, I think the fact that Chet is basically a three-man, he's going to play a lot on the perimeter, is going to help some things. But the thing that makes Timme is he's such a smart player, whether it be his footwork, like Hummel talked about, or his passing ability. He doubled his assists from year one to year two. And I fell victim to this. You feel like you have to do other things to prove people wrong. Do what you do well. What he does got him 19-8 or 19-7, whatever it was last year. Be you, adjust when you need to. Your team needs you to be kind of the facilitator on that Gonzaga team. And I just love the way that Timme is able to, he can function in the high post. He can really attack. Don't go crazy with the threes, my man, because what you already do is, it's extremely valuable at the college level.
All right, and we are going to head over to an interview with Drew Timme right now.
Now pleased to be joined by Gonzaga's Drew Timme, who you look normal, Drew. I don't know. You look the most normal I have seen you since I first met you back your junior year in high school.
Yeah, just getting back to my old roots, but I always got my stuff equipped. So if it ever needs to come out like right now, it's always there for me. So
you just get the razor and go to work.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's good. I like that. All right. So last year, I think we talked and we knew you'd have a breakout year, but 19-7 last year, and we have you as the preseason National Player of the Year this year. What does that sound like to you when I say that?
It's pretty surreal. It's something that you dream about, but not something that you actually think could happen all the time. And it's truly an honor, and it's something that's it's really nice to hear, and it feels good that all the work you put in is starting to pay off a little bit. But honestly, that doesn't really mean much to me. I still got a bitter taste in my mouth from last year, and I'm more focused on that than anything.
Yeah, I figured. I figured that anything else you hear individually does not matter right now, does it? I mean, you're back in school and on a mission for one thing, aren't you?
Exactly.
How much do you think about that loss to Baylor?
I think about it more than I probably should. it's definitely something that motivates me every day. And, the days where it's a little extra hard to get out of bed or, like finding that like 100% passion, just thinking about that just really rejuvenates me and really helps me get going on the days that aren't easy to get going. So it's been a plus for me, honestly, especially this off season, just staying really motivated and really just like pushing myself every day.
All right. So what's the difference in junior Drew Timme as opposed to sophomore in terms of what you worked on this past off season? I assume we'll probably see you take more than 21 threes this year.
Of course. I think the main thing is I'm way more confident than I was last year. I think just stepping into this leadership role, just being more of a teacher, especially to my teammates, trying to help them learn. And then also just that the more responsibility I have now this year, I'm trying to embrace that. And I think that's been challenging me to get even better and set the bar even higher, even in stuff like practice and weights and shooting workouts. So I think it's really just helped my confidence grow, and as well as just being a better leader. I think that's the biggest things for me this year.
So does that mean you're less of a knucklehead during practice? I know Few said, you and him go back at it a little bit with some friendly banner. Are you a little more professional now during practice?
No, I'm still me, but there's a more controlled like rage, I would say, in practice. So just that intensity can just kind of irradiates, I feel like. So I think I'm more intense, but I'm still the same me at the end of the day.
All right, good. We don't want to lose that. We still want the fun, happy-go-lucky Drew Timme. We don't need to lose that. We got enough guys who are buttoned up in college basketball. We don't need you to go that route. All right, so the team: Jalen Suggs gone, Corey Kispert gone, Joel gone. You bring in a pretty good front court mate, though. I'd say he's pretty good in Chet Holmgren. He's also got a little bit of a personality for a big, doesn't he? And how do you describe Chet Holmgren to people that haven't seen him play or haven't met him?
Well, he is a once in a generation talent. That's just obvious. I don't know what he can't do. He can shoot, dribble, pass. He just has a great IQ, but personality wise, he's just like really fun to be around. He's a great guy. He's funny. He's smart. He's witty. He's just really he's just a really fun person to be around, and he can hold court in a room, but he can also, sit back. He's just got really good social skills as well. He's a great guy.
I like how we asked Drew Timme what's it like to be to play in the front court with Chet Holmgren, and he says he has great social skills. That's good how that team dynamic is going to end up working out. All right, so we're going to move on. We'll get back to these big guys in a little bit, but I think the most, controversial pick for our first team All-Americans is probably the guy that one Jeffrey Goodman with Stadium down there has put on the first team. It is Andre Curbelo from Illinois, their starting point guard. He's a lot of fun to watch. They call him the Magician. Our Deion Thomas, the host of the Champagne on Ice, our Illinois podcast, calls him El Mago, the Magician. So, Jeff, why is Andre Curbelo a first-team All-American?
Well, I just think he makes everybody better, and he does it in a way that I think is just going to be so much fun to watch for people that haven't already seen him. Right now, it's his show. Last year, obviously, you had Ayo, and not to say Ayo had the ball in his hands all the time, but he had the ball in his hands enough, and he was kind of the closer. Now Curbelo is going to be the guy that honestly is going to have it in his hands 99% of the time. Sure, he's got to cut down on his turnovers. He's got to make shots from the perimeter if they don't guard him out there. But nobody can do what Andre Curbelo can do. And to me, I think he's going to be the best player. And I know a lot of people think it's Kofi Coburn, and he's one hell of a player. But ultimately, it's a guard's game. And Andre Curbelo is somebody, again, that makes everybody around him better, and he does it with so much flash and fun and smiling. And I love the kid. I love him. I think he's going to have a hell of a year. I bet he averages, 15, and he has a chance to lead the country in assists.
Robbie, you covered the Big Ten. I see you smiling. I see you laughing over there. I need a breakdown. I need your reaction to this.
And I don't want to come off as sounding like somebody who doesn't think Andre Curbelo can play, because I totally do. I really like him. I think he can be a first-team All Big Ten type guy. We are talking, Jeff, about a first-team All-American.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. 16% from the three-point line, that is a huge issue. They're going to go under and under and under on pick and roll until he can prove he can make shots. I really like Andre Curbelo. I think he can really pass. I think he can really make plays. Averaged a little over 2.5 turnovers a game, which certainly with as many plays as he's making, you live with it. But he's got to make perimeter jump shots, and I'm just not sure that he's going to be the guy that can, at least yet. I think he can be a first-team All-Big Ten guy. I just think first-team All-American is – I think Jeff's drinking some good stuff up there in Boston. I don't know about that.
You got to have a point guard. That's my take is, again, we talked about this at the start of the show. You can't have 5 bigs. The point guard spot is not nearly as strong as it is up front, and I just felt like Curbelo over some of the other guys. I went with Curbelo because of his upside. And if he does, all he's got to do, Rob, is make 30% from 3 and take them. Take them.
This man made 5 threes last year. All he's got to do is shoot 30% from 3. Come on, dude. That's like an easy thing to do when you have shot so poorly. And maybe
just double it.
Man,
just double it.
It's not easy.
I will say this to combat what Robbie said. Like, he will dribble and dribble and dribble until he gets into the paint. So I'll give him credit there.
Exactly.
That is true.
He'll get there eventually.
Yeah. That's 9 ball screens, and this dude will get to the rim. There we go.
That's it. And he's one of the most creative finishers in the country. I mean, left-hand floater, up underneath, scoop shots, finger rolls. He does all of that stuff. And now that it is his show and Desumnu's out of the way, I'm not sure first-team All-American. I think I'm siding with Hummel a little bit on this one. But as far as most fascinating player to watch in the country, he's got to be top 3. I can't think of 2 more entertaining players in the country.
I will say this about Andre Curbelo, when we got him coming on this on the show with us next, is that he is going to get 3 or 4 assists a game just coming off ball screens and throwing it up to Kofi Coburn. So the numbers are going to be there, right? The Illini are probably going to end up being a top 10, top 15-ish kind of a team. So if you can average, like, let's say he averages 15 and 8 on a team that's top 12 in the country, those are going to be really good numbers in a year where there aren't that many great point guards. So I personally would not have him first team All-American. I kind of understand where Goodman is coming from, and that is the nicest thing that I'm going to say about Goodman at this point. So let's go to the interview.
His shot's not broken. I mean, so even though he was 5 of 31, which is atrocious, I could see to where the percentage does jump.
Jeff said he had a good 5 of 31, though. He really liked it.
It was a good 5 to me. It's
hit every part of the rim and then went out. Yeah,
a good 5 for 31. That's the story of Jeff's life. All right, let's get to that interview with Andre Curbelo.
Now, pleased to welcome in Andre Curbelo, sophomore for Illinois, point guard. That Andre, am I calling you Andre or am I calling you Bello? I know everybody calls
you. You, man. I like both. I have Andre, Dre, Bello, Curbelo. I have plenty. So up to you.
No preference. All right, that's good. All right, I'm gonna call you Andre. I'm gonna try to keep it, try to keep it real here. And all right, first of all, tell me a little bit about you last year and your role on last year's Illinois team as a freshman. You came in heralded. Obviously, you're playing with 2 great players in Io and Kofi. What was that like for you as far as the year went on?
It was great, man. Obviously when I heard they both were coming back, I was happy. I didn't, get mad because I was going to lose minutes or anything. If anything, I did the opposite. Like I said, I was very happy they came back. And like, you well said it, I embraced the role. I came off the bench in high school a few times. So like I never had a problem with that, and like I said again, I embraced it. I took the challenge, and it made me feel great because every time I came off the bench, something good was happening every time I came in. So like that gave me good vibes of me coming out the bench, and once again like that just made me even embrace my role even more. Because if I embrace that to the highest point, I think that's why I played the way I played towards the end of the season, because I just said, okay, this is my role. This is what I have to do for the team. And that's everything that's what I did on the court every time I stepped in.
So I love watching you because not only do you make people better consistently, but you always look like you're having fun out there. Like you never stop smiling. And I think it's contagious. Where did you get your game from? I mean, you're from Puerto Rico, then you go to New York. There's a lot of flash in both, right?
Yeah.
Puerto Rico and New York.
Not every time people ask me that, I just tell them it came from me. It was natural. As soon as I started playing baseball, and when I stopped playing, and I would watch my dad play because he played professionally in Puerto Rico and all that stuff. So I would go to the game and see people, as a kid just running up and down. So I'm like, okay, maybe I want to do that. As a kid, you want to feel free. And when I, as soon as I started playing basketball, I just felt free. And I felt like I had that freedom on the court to be myself. And, when I started playing, that was just the way I started playing. And I, once again, I embraced that. And not too many people play like that nowadays. So I think it's kind of unique in a way, just because not every point guard wants to pass first. Not every point guard wants to keep their teammates happy or look for their teammates first. And that's something I take pride on because, the game of basketball, I've been playing for a while now, 15, 16 years. And it's not about winning and losing. Like I had to learn that the right way. It's about how you impact all these people's life and how you impact all these people's game. And I think I do a pretty good job of that because I take pride on that. I want to have guys that want to play with me. I want to hear guys saying, hey, I want to go play for him, with him. Sorry. And that's the pride I take on every time I step on the court, because it's important to have that relationship with your teammates.
All right. So that was Andre Curbelo. The next guy that we are going to talk about on our first team All-American team, we kind of mentioned already earlier in the show. It is Michigan center Hunter Dickinson. Robbie, you cover the league. You see plenty of Michigan games. I know you like Hunter. What do you think about him, and why is he a first team All-American?
He's just a really good player. You're talking about the Big Ten Freshman of the Year last year, pretty much a consensus second team All-American, a huge body. At 7'1", he takes up so much space in the paint. He can really score the ball. He loves to go to his left-hand jump hook. And I think that's why when you look at Hunter Dickinson, you say, hey, he's got a right hand that he can totally develop. And you hope he's worked at it over the course of the offseason. Needs to go right more. But, man, when he goes left, he gets there. And it's something about lefties. They just can't. I don't know if it's because in your mind you're like, you guard right-handed players so often. But Hunter Dickinson's one of those guys where he gets to his left hand. I think this is a lot like Drew Timme, what Jeff was saying, where he probably needs to stay himself. I'm not saying he cannot make threes because I do think he's a skilled shooter. He really stopped shooting perimeter shots and even 15-footers the later you got into the season. It really kind of tapered off for him. I'm sure he'll want to shoot more threes, much like every big guy in America wants to do. That's okay, as long as they're good. And I think he just needs to – you can't lose track of who you are, what you are. He's got great touch. He's a very good passer. But once again, you look at the assisted turnover numbers, not great. At times he did struggle with giving the ball to the other team, has to continue to handle the double team. But overall, Hunter Dickinson is an elite player, and he's an elite big, and that's why I think you have to put him on the first team.
T.O., talk to me about him. What do you like about him?
Well, if a lot of what Robbie just said, the fact that if he's able to handle double teams this year whenever they throw bodies at him, and Juwan Howard's done a great job. You guys have talked about it on your other podcast. He's done a great job of surrounding him with talent. So whenever those double teams come, I'm sure that was an emphasis in the offseason. He's just so efficient. I mean, the Big Ten, the league of the aircraft carrier, still was able to get 60% of his field goals to. I mean, he's knocking shots at a really nice rate. If he's able to adjust to the double teams, I mean, Michigan's got shooters around him.
The one thing that I think makes a lot of sense here, and Jeff, you kind of touched on this a little bit when you talked to Hunter, is that he is a big man and he is learning from Juwan Howard. There is so much valuable experience that you can get learning how to be a big man at any level of basketball from Juwan Howard. Am I right, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're a big guy and you're going to pick a school and you're looking at somebody, I always said this when, like, Steve Wojciechowski was at Marquette or at Duke and he was coaching the bigs. I'm like, who would want to go there as a big man and learn from Steve Wojciechowski, who's like 5'10"? It makes no sense. So, like, I want to learn from Juwan Howard if I'm a big. If I'm a guard, yes, I want to learn from Woj. So, like, to me, it makes sense. And Hunter Dickinson didn't really think about it a year ago. Came off the bench to start the year, and he was a guy who didn't have the full year to get in shape. Now he had that. You know, with COVID, you didn't have that luxury last year as a freshman. Freshmen were so far behind if you look around the country, but not Hunter Dickinson. Look at how successful and how productive he was as a freshman in a COVID year. That is what amazes me about what he did.
Here's the question I have for all of you guys, and anyone, please feel free to weigh in if you have a strong opinion about this. Defensively, my big issue with putting guys like Hunter and putting guys like Kofi Coburn, I think he falls into that conversation. And honestly, Drew Timme probably a little bit. It's the defense, right? Like there is certain limitations that come with playing those guys at the 5 in an era where ball screens are so prevalent. And
real quick, before we go there, Jeff, would you like to learn how to be a big man from Pete Newell? How tall was he?
Well, he was bigger than Woj. He was bigger than Woj.
6'2", the king of the big man.
Well, listen, I'm not saying it's everybody. I'm not saying it's everything, but I'm saying, Robbie, if you have a chance to be tutored by Juwan Howard or Steve Wojciechowski and you're 7 feet, who are you going to pick?
No, that wasn't my question. My question was, I'm pretty sure the award's named after him, and I'm pretty sure he's under 6'4". Anyways, Rob, back to what were you?
Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Pete Newell. First of all,
yes.
Hey, look, big men can be 6'4", Robbie. What are you saying about Mark Vital?
Yeah, my man Mark Vital would argue that. You're talking defense with Hunter Dickinson in the ball screen stuff, and I think that's certainly an area he needs to improve in, and will need to continue to improve in. You can never be too good in pick and roll, and I look at it, I was fortunate to play with Kevin Garnett at the end of his career, and certainly he had attributes physically where he could really guard ball screens, his length, his athleticism, even at 39. But the fact of the matter was he's the best ball screen defender I've ever seen, because he would just communicate at the highest level. He would talk guards through it. He would shut the whole side of the court down. And yes, part of that is his length and his wingspan and just his natural gifts. But there's a lot of ways you can improve. And Hunter's going to have to get better laterally. He's going to have to really become a better communicator. But, it's a work in progress. And from an NBA standpoint, you've got to be able to do it. We'll see what he looks like this year, because teams are going to put him in pick and roll.
Hey, Rob, quickly, how many F-bombs did KG yell at you over the short time that you guys played together? It had to be
before you get to that, I was literally about to ask the question, what's the meanest thing that KG ever said to you in practice?
Dude, he was never mean to me. He's the best teammate ever. Now, other guys,
right.
Other teams, it's a freaking free-for-all. But the first time I met Kevin Garnett, he said the F word like, legitimately, I heard him 100 times. He loved it.
You can't bring kids close to the court. Like any young kids, when KG's playing, you cannot have them in the first 5 rows.
Hey, I will say this about the college game. We're going back to Hunter Dickinson playing defense. I mean, KG obviously was great at ball screen defense for a number of reasons, but I think what Dauster alluded to earlier is big, because Dickinson didn't have that summer to prepare for college ball screen defense. And you saw it no matter if it was Kentucky with all their young guys, Duke struggled with a lot of young guys. Those small details as far as how far to go up, when you're playing drop coverage or something like that and still communicating, that is massive during the summer. I think you're going to see a big improvement just simply because of that alone.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into that interview with Hunter Dickinson.
All right, now pleased to welcome in preseason first team All-American, Hunter Dickinson. First of all, how does that sound, Hunter?
It's pretty crazy. I mean, growing up, you see all those accolades that players will get, preseason first team and all that. But to, kind of hear it for the first time was really special for me.
Especially considering a year ago, you came off the bench to start your career. I think you played about 15, 18 minutes your first game against Bowling Green. And what was it last year that you think enabled you to come on like you did as a freshman and have that type of impact?
I think it was a mix of, Austin Davis being there, that veteran leadership. He taught me everything that he knew, and I was so appreciative of him for that because there's no way I would have been the player I am today without him. And then, obviously Coach Howard, being the expert that he is and all things big men, those two really helped me, and I owe everything, I did last year to those guys.
So I can see it already, not in person here, but you got a little more definition, little thinner. What's the offseason been like for you? And, go through kind of what the NBA people told you as you went through the process.
Yeah, I mean, this summer was amazing for me. I was really happy with it. I feel like I got a lot better. I feel like my game has just changed so much since last year. And, I just feel a lot better about my game. The NBA people told me, everything that, I assumed going into, like they want to see me hit threes, for an entire season and not just, in workouts and stuff like that. And then also, with ball screens and stuff like that, they want to be able to see me switch on the perimeter a little bit more and just, my overall movements and stuff like that. And so, me and Coach Sandman have been working on it. Even me and Coach Howard have been working on it. And so that's stuff that, we've been working on at the end of the summer, but especially during the summer when I was back home with my strength coach.
No doubt. So last year you were 0 for 4 from 3. Are we going to see you launch some threes this year? What do you have the green light? Do you know yet whether you're going to have the green light, or are we, moving it out to like 18 feet?
I mean, Coach Howard, I think everybody on the team has the green light with him. That's one of the best things that people love playing for him. If you play for Coach Howard, you know that he's not really going to get mad at you for taking one or a specific shot, as long as, it's within the offense and, he's seen you work on it and stuff like that. And so that's why, I think a lot of people feel comfortable playing for Coach Howard because, he doesn't put you in a box. And so I definitely think that, he's okay with me shooting. And I think that's something that, I've been working on really hard this summer. And so I plan to use it.
Appreciate you taking the time. First team preseason All-American. Now you got to go out there and do it and win some games again.
For sure.
All right, that was Hunter Dickinson. The next guy that we are going to talk about, the fourth member of our preseason first-team All-American team, is probably the least surprising member of a preseason first-team All-American team, and that is Duke center and freshman Paolo Banchero. Goodman, it's Paolo Banchero. Get it right. You pronounced it wrong for 18 months. Banchero.
I did. And he never corrected me. Never corrected you.
We have our ACC expert here, Terrence Oglesby. I know you like this kid just about as much as I do. We had a conversation on our podcast on Tuesday where I asked you who the one player that you would pick to start a team in college basketball this season is, and you picked Paolo Banchero. Why is that, T.O.?
Hey, Goodman, it's actually Paolo Napoleon James Banchero, just in case all 4 names are correct. No, in order to have a good college team, what do you go after? You go after your 1 position and your 4 position. If those 2 are really good, your team's usually pretty good. And Paolo Banchero, a lot of people are going to see him and just be shocked at some of the things he does. He does it at 6'10", 260 pounds, and he handles the ball well. He's overwhelming physically. And there's a number of reasons why Coach K decided to come back for one more victory lap, if you will. And Paolo Banchero is one of those reasons. He's going to remind some people, in my opinion, of Jabari Parker whenever he came to Duke. With that level of athleticism, some perimeter ability. And I think he's going to shoot it better than Parker did too. And that's not a slight because Parker was, first team All-ACC, third team All-American, freshman of the year in the conference. He's somebody that can dominate the game like that. You're looking at somebody who's going to get 20 and 10. And I don't think I have that say that with no hesitancy. He's going to be that physically gifted. And some of the videos, guys, that are coming out of Duke's camp, wherever he's coming off ball screens at this size and making skip passes across his body. I mean, it makes pros salivate. It makes basketball heads salivate. This guy is going to be something special in Durham.
Yeah, there's things that he can do as a big man that you're not supposed to do as someone that is the size of Karl Malone, more or less. And the thing that's most impressive about him to me is that you watch some of his high school tape, and I mean, he's running the one, man. He's grabbing and going off of rebounds. They're running him off of ball screens, and he's 1-2ing into pull-ups off the dribble, hitting 18-footers off the dribble, hitting step-back threes. I mean, Robbie, how many 6'10", 260 guys have you ever seen that are going between their legs and doing sidestep threes?
Not many. I mean, I just think that it says something when you're starting to see some articles come out about coaches leaking that this dude is on the same type of level as a Michael Beasley or a Kevin Durant, that type of talent level. And I mean, Terrence talked about, his abilities and what he can do at 6'10", 250. I look at the fact that he can push the ball off the glass and move it into transition. And I think Mark Williams coming back, you play him at center, you've got Banchero at the 4, and with the way Duke scored or their lack of scoring last year, they're certainly going to be much improved because they have a much different team. Mm-hmm. But I just think that's such a weapon. It is so hard to guard when your 4-man can take it off the glass, push it in transition, and initiate offense. He can certainly do that. He can make threes. He can make shots off the bounce. He's a freak. And I think he's maybe flying a little bit under the radar just because Chet Holmgren was on TV so much. And people saw him, and rightfully so, because Chet is a freak in his own manner. But, I think when we see Paolo Banchero this year, it's going to be eye-opening at how good he really is.
Yeah, I'm just imagining Duke running ball screens with 3 shooters around the perimeter and Paolo Banchero coming off of Mark Williams. Yep. And I just don't know how ACC teams are going to be able to stop that. I mean, you got a guy that can make some of those passes. You got a guy that can handle the ball at that size, that can hit jumpers, and can also, oh, by the way, bully you in the post or dunk over you from about 10 feet away. Like that, guys like that don't come around too often. And I do want to try to avoid putting too much of a level of expectation on him because we have guys like
comparing to Durant and Mike Beasley. So
yeah, I know. Like that's to me, that's too much. Especially
I'm going to take it down. I'm going to take it down a notch.
Don't tell me that Shane Sharp is better than him.
No, Chris Webber. I'm comparing him to Chris Webber, and I say this in the interview with him. I think they're very similar at the same stage. Paolo is actually a little bit taller, but if you remember Webber, obviously, what could he do? He could do everything, right? I mean, he just had physical gifts that allowed him to score at all 3 levels, take it off the glass and go with it, played hard. This kid plays hard as shit.
Yes.
Like I saw him a year and a half ago. I actually saw him at USA Basketball, and then I went out to Seattle and saw him in a high school game. And he's just so physically dominant, but he doesn't just go through the motions ever. Like he plays hard at all times. And I think that's what's going to separate him. And like you said, Terrence, I think he can be a guy who averages 20 and 10 this year.
Yeah. How much did Webber weigh coming out of high school? Because there's no way he weighed 255 pounds. I think that's going to be
probably 225 or 230. Mm-hmm. I mean, that'd be my guess coming out of high school. This kid is a man-child. And again, he's going to be the cornerstone of everything that Duke does. And again, another one that I hope doesn't fall in love with his perimeter shot, because I still think he's way more effective somewhere from like 12 and in. Like he can just score around the basket, and in transition, he's a monster.
Well, he needs to be able to kind of understand that he can put his head down and get to the rim pretty much whenever he wants to. But the fact that he can make those shots, there's a difference between taking a shot to take it and taking a shot because it's the right shot. And I think that that's going to be something that's very important for him to understand. Before we do get into that interview, though, I just want to make something very clear. And I don't know if any of you guys know this. Paolo Banchero, when he was 12 years old, was a world-class long jumper. So not only is he 6'10 and 260, but he's a kid that has that kind of explosiveness and athleticism.
Let's hope a 12-year-old long jumping translates to college basketball.
We'll see. We'll see. Let's get into that interview with Paolo Banchero.
Now, pleased to welcome in Duke freshman Paolo Banchero. I got the pronunciation right this time, Paolo, so I apologize for a year or so ago getting it wrong. How's life so far on the campus of Duke?
It's been good. It's been good. Practicing, being on campus, going to class, being around other students, just living the college life. It's been good.
Living the dream?
You could say so.
Last time we saw each other, it was in Seattle, high school game. And I just said to you, you look a little different. Now, again, the camera, it can change a little bit, but you said you're leaner, you're taller. What are you at now? 6'9", 6'10"? What are you at?
Yeah, I'm definitely taller since the last time you see me. I'm about 6'10" without shoes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And you definitely look like you trimmed down a little bit. What has been the biggest change in your game since I last saw you in person?
I would say I just, overall just got better. I say I'm more confident dribbling the ball and just having the ball in my hands. I think I always was comfortable with it, but I think now I'm just super confident with the ball at any spot on the floor since the last time you saw me. So just getting better in every aspect. Becoming a better shooter. Stronger, still finishing through contact, stuff like that.
I don't know if you remember, but my everybody loves to compare people to somebody. My comparison for you, I don't know if you remember, it was Chris Webber. And I don't know how much Chris Webber tape you've watched in your career here or in your life, but he was that one of the first kind of multi-dimensional forwards, big, strong, could do everything, pass, shoot, dribble, score inside. Who do you think you play like? Who's the best comparison for you?
The best comparison, if I had to pick one player, I would say, I don't know. I would say, I don't know. I would just put me in the mode of like a forward, a dynamic forward who can play all positions, guard all positions, still can score inside, can stretch the floor, attack off the dribble, whatever you need me to do, defend, rebound, play athletic above the rim, just whatever.
All right. That sounds like Chris Webber to me.
And pass too.
Pass too. That's what I'm saying. See, you're describing Chris Webber's game when he was certainly in college and in the NBA. All right. So what's the weakness in your game? What do you need to get better at? What is Coach already kind of harping on you? Because I'm sure he is about something. What's it been about?
Really just, when I catch the ball, not putting it down and wasting dribbles. Just being decisive, catching, triple threat, and ripping. Going hard one way. Just making strong moves all over the floor. Playing with a wide base. Playing just aggressive. Everything I do. It gives me a lot of freedom as long as it's all strong moves, aggressive moves. If I start being too finesse or kind of going up soft, that's when he jumps on me right away. So playing through contact.
All right, that was Paolo Banchero. So the last guy that we have on our preseason first team All-American team is a guy that I'm going to talk about a little bit. He's my pick. He's the guy that I pushed on to get on there, and he is someone that is probably going to be a little bit, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but is not going to be a guy that a lot of people
I'd say controversial is a good word. That's a good
great word. Great word.
It's James Akinjo from Baylor, the transfer from Arizona who started his career at Georgetown. He averaged 15 points and 6 assists last season at Arizona, but he's also a kid that's bounced around quite a bit in his college career. This is the third program that he has been at. The reason why I have him here is that I don't know if there is a more
there it is.
Point guard friendly. There you go, Goodman. Say you're on my side. I don't know if there's a more point guard friendly offense than what Scott Drew runs in Baylor right now. They're going to put Akinjo in ball screens. They're going to allow him to kind of get out there and create. The one thing that I really think I want to emphasize here is that I was talking with Scott Drew over the summer at Peach Jam, and the one thing he said about James is that dude is like competitive to a fault. Like he doesn't accept being on teams with players that aren't going to live and die with every win and loss the way that he does. And at Georgetown, that was just not, to be frank, that was not going on when James Akinjo was there. And when he was at Arizona, he had a bunch of European freshmen on the roster, and it was not a great fit for him. That culture,
couldn't understand them. Couldn't understand them.
That's it. That's true.
That Baylor culture is perfect for James Akinjo. I think that offense is perfect for James Akinjo. So I know I'm going out on a bit of a limb here, but I'm calling my shot. I'm planting my flag in the sand, and I think that James Akinjo at the end of the season is going to be a first-team All-American. Someone tell me why I'm wrong.
Oh,
there's
go ahead,
players.
Robbie. You want to start? Robbie, go ahead, start.
Well, I just said because there's better players. That's my reason that you're going to be wrong. Go ahead, Jeff. That's all I got to say.
Because he's going to be the third leading scorer on his own team. So let's start with that. I think Adam Flagler and Matthew Mayer both average more points a game. I love Akinjo because he's a killer. Like,
isn't it Meyer?
I'm sorry, what did I say, Mayer?
God, you just butcher everybody's
the off season. Well, it's like Dausterism. Like he rubs off on you, and you just start pronouncing everything wrong.
Maybe you're the one that pronounced that. Maybe I'm the one that pronounces everything right, and I've just been badly influenced by you. I think that's what's actually going on here.
Could be. Probably hanging around with you too much. But listen, Akinjo is good, but Baylor's going to be very balanced. That's the deal with this Baylor team is I think they're going to be very balanced. So I don't think they're going to have. I thought about all those guys as possibilities, but ultimately I don't think you could take a guy from Baylor. I don't think you could take a guy from Texas. I don't think you could take a guy from Kansas because I think those three teams, all of which are in the Big 12, are all super balanced.
I will say this. I believe in Matthew Meyer's game at the highest level. Now, do I think he loves to play? I don't know.
Hey, Rob, he's a Robbie Hummel clone.
Oh, he is so much more athletic than I ever was. You watch this dude in warm-ups. He's going off one, and he is hammering it. But I think if anybody's going to lead Baylor in scoring, I really think Matthew Meyer is going to be the guy.
I will say this. Out of the 5 guys that we've already picked, I think this team, the Baylor team, is going to rely on Akinjo more than any of the other 4. And the reason I say that is because with Jared Butler leaving and Davion Mitchell leaving, my biggest concern coming into this year for Baylor was who's going to make the initial breakdown in defense, because Meyer is excellent off the catch whenever somebody's flying at him. So is Flagler. Whenever he catches the ball, he's got to have somebody coming at him because he's such an excellent shooter. Who's going to make that chain of events happen? And I think Akinjo, because he's got that elite quickness and able to get wherever he wants, I think he could have that type of impact. Is he an All-American?
That's first team.
Well, yeah, of course.
How much space he's going to have to operate?
The writers on this podcast are drunk.
Look at how much space. Hey, look! I played 2.5 years of Division III basketball, Robbie. All right, don't label me a writer. All right, I was a thoroughly.
You're more of a player than Jeff.
Athlete, okay.
All right.
And I want my respect. All I'll say is Terrence comparing Hummel and Meyer. Meyer's honestly, his vertical is double Hummel's. Double.
Goodman, we know what Robbie's vertical is.
It was because Hummel was wearing knee braces since he was like 10. He was wearing knee braces.
You're talking about my vertical jump after I blew my knee out twice. I've had 2 meniscus surgeries, and I'm 32. It's not what it was when I was 20.
All right, we got James Akinjo here. Let's get into that interview with James Akinjo.
Jesus.
Let me welcome onto the show new Baylor point guard, James Akinjo. James, thanks for coming on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing real well. I'll start you off with the easy one. You've been at Baylor for a couple of months now, and how's that transition gone? Are you settled in yet?
Transition been good. Like I said, my teammates and my coaches have made it real easy for me. Just accepting me, allowing me to come in and be myself, and I'm just loving working hard here and competing every day.
So one of the things that we hear over and over again about this Baylor program is their culture. And you're somewhat unique in the sense that you've spent time at 3 really terrific basketball programs now. I'm curious, what is it about this Baylor culture that kind of sets them apart and that stands out? And is that different that's different than Georgetown and Arizona where you were previously?
First of all, everything here is God first. So we do things that are unique that other schools don't do. And the way we put God first in our lives and the standards that we set for ourselves, not only on the court, but off the court. We are all held to a high standard off the court, and there are certain things that, are not required of us, but, just being here and being a part of the culture that, you kind of want to do. And it just helps you become a better person on and off the court. So this culture is definitely unique.
So you are a veteran. You've been around college basketball for a while, but you're also kind of the new guy in this program, filling the void of 2 guards that basically were the foundation of back-to-back Big 12 champions. So let me ask you this. How do you balance that? How do you balance being the new person in the program while also having to fill the void of the leadership left by 2 of the best guards that you're going to have through any Big 12 program in Jared Butler and Davion?
I just come in and be myself. Obviously, off the rip, I can't come in expecting to be the vocal leader. This new group of guys, there's some guys that already been here, but as time go on, people already, my teammates, they know that I've been in college, so they looking to me, for some things and some answers, So I just come in and I be myself and I lead by example. Every day I come out, I work hard, I compete, and I try to set the tone in practice and everything how it's supposed to be and how it's going to be in the game. So it's easy just coming in and be myself.
So you mentioned being yourself. I spoke with Coach Drew at Peach Jam, and what he told me is that the thing he loved the most about you is that you are out of your mind competitive and you expect nothing less from your teammates. You think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Definitely. So, I mean, you're competitive. What are you're coming off of a national title. Like, what's your level of expectation going into the season? What are your goals there?
Obviously, the goal is always to win a national title. But with that being said, you can't win a national title in one day. So we're not thinking national title, we going to win it today or tomorrow. We understand the work that got to be done. And so we are thinking, every day we got to come in, we got to work hard, take it day by day, game by game. But obviously, the ultimate goal is to win the national title.
Be those back-to-back champs. I like that. That's a good politically correct answer right there. So this is my last question for you, and I think it's the most important one. Everyone that I've met associated with the Baylor program has a funny story about Coach Drew, whether it's something ridiculous he did on the recruiting trail, whether it's his inability to drive without getting a ticket. So I need your funny Coach Drew story.
I don't know if I have a story. I haven't been around like that long, but he's just a funny guy in general. When he recruiting you, his energy and the way he is and how upbeat and uppity he is, you think it's fake because he's trying to recruit you just to get you. But when you actually get here, you see that that's not fake at all. Like, that's really him. Like, he's always the same way every day. Like, he's always in a good mood, always happy. He looks for the best in every situation, and he always want to see his players do good. So I think he's just a funny dude in general.
I bet that's a lot of fun when you walk in for a 6 a.m. practice and he's already smiling and beaming ear to ear, huh?
Yeah, always smiling, beaming ear to ear, yelling, turned up, just energy. It is contagious.
Well, listen, James, I appreciate the time. Best of luck to you this season, and thank you for coming on the show with us.
So thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
That seems to be a recurring theme with Scott Drew. All these guys come in, they think it's fake, and then it ends up being real. But just kind of expound on my point a little bit. You guys know how many assists that Mitchell and Butler combined for? 309. I mean, that's significant in him having to come in and create for his teammates. So first team All-American, maybe, but he's going to be relied on real heavily in that offense.
So the teams that we just talked about are kind of the consensus that all of us put together. Each of us have our own individual preseason All-American teams, first and second team. Robbie, since you seem to hate every single decision that has been made.
I mean, you said consensus, and I'm pretty sure two of the picks, multiple people were like, whoa, but that's fine.
Go ahead. You go first. Talk to us about your team.
So my first team is going to be three guys that you had. I've got Drew Timme. I've got Paolo Banchero. I've got Hunter Dickinson. I went Johnny Juzang at UCLA, and then I'm going Colin Gillespie as a point guard. And I just think, when you look at that, I go with Johnny Juzang because of the fact that he had an absolutely monster NCAA tournament. And you're doing it on the highest level against Michigan, against Gonzaga. I just think that you can't overlook that. And certainly we're going to talk about later Juzang versus Jaime Jaquez, and that's a valid argument. But I think you have to give credit to Johnny Juzang for the NCAA tournament he had. I have a feeling that there will be some critics of Colin Gillespie. He's coming off a knee injury, but the way I look at it is he's a really, really solid point guard. He's going to play on a big-time team for Jay Wright at Villanova. And I think that there's people who have proved in college basketball you can come off a serious knee injury and still get buckets. So we'll see what Colin Gillespie brings to the table. My second team, Chet Holmgren, Trace Jackson Davis, Jaden Ivey at Purdue. Kofi Coburn was a tough one to leave off the first team because of how good I think of a year he's going to have at Illinois. And then Amani Bates at Memphis, ton of opportunity, learn from one of the best in Penny Hardaway. He's going to play some point guard. I think that could really suit him. And he's not going to have to do it all the time, but I think Amani Bates is going to be a really, really good player this year for Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect segue. Dagan, if you could just throw up my team real quick. I have Jaime Jaquez as one of my first-team All-Americans. And as you can see, I also have Colin Gillespie on there. I have Paolo Banchero as a first-teamer, Drew Timme, obviously, and, of course, James Akinjo there. But I want to talk a little bit about Jaime versus Johnny Juzang because I want to say this thing. I really like Johnny Juzang as a player. I got him as a second-team All-American. You can see right there. But I think he's kind of just like a guy that is a shot maker. right? And if you look at what he did for UCLA last year, he just went on an unbelievable run in the tournament, but he's not going to shoot like that high of a percentage across an entire season. I can see a year where he kind of has like 15, 16 points a game that he averages, where some nights he goes off for 29. Some nights he also shoots 3 for 13 from the floor. So to me, he's a guy that is a scorer first and foremost. And when he's hot, he's going to look great, but he's not going to be hot every night. I think Jaime Jaquez does so much of what a Mick Cronin coach team needs, right? He's tough. He's going to defend. He can play bigger if he needs to. He's going to knock down shots. He makes everything kind of work from that small ball 4 spot that he gets used in. I mean, it's a different conversation. I just think UCLA is going to be awesome this year. They have great players. They have a really good point guard in Tiger Campbell that I think can kind of facilitate everything. I think Peyton Watson is going to be a monster stepping in. They're going to have a lot of really good defensive pieces. And to me, Miles Johnson is the most underrated addition for any team in college basketball. I think he's the anchor inside that they haven't had. But I just think Jaime Jaquez, based on what he can do for his entire game, it's something where he's just a perfect Mick Cronin player. I don't know how you guys feel. T.O., Jeff, weigh in there.
I love Jaquez. I think the fact that he hits so many tough shots, I think he's the best player on UCLA's team because he can do it on his own wherever he goes. I think that's the big difference between him and Juzang. Juzang is another guy that attacks off the catch. If you go back and look at all of his makes, he's somebody that's really good as long as somebody gets him in a spot. Now, he is good at getting to spots where he can catch it and, make some actions happen. But some of the shots that Jaquez was hitting last year during the tournament were just unreal. And while both of them are really good, in my opinion, I think Tiger Campbell is the most important player to this team just because of the pace they play one, and he's got to find a way to divvy up shots between the two.
Before you go, Jeff, I just want to give a shout out to Simeon Fuller, who jumped into the chat and he said, Robbie, that's some real haterade. And then he said the alone I will dominate Purdue this year instead of the Illini. He got the Illini. That's one of the best typos I've ever seen in the comments. The alone I. Oh man, Jeff, where do you stand on Jaime Jaquez versus Johnny Juzang? And why don't you kind of take us through your All-American teams here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have no problem with both. They were in the equation for me. Again, it was really difficult for me to pick one, so I picked neither because I think UCLA, much like, again, the Baylors, the Kansases, the Texases, they're all going to have a bunch of dudes that are averaging between 12 and 15. And Juzang, to me, I don't want to say he's a one-trick pony because he's not, but I think he's an elite-level shooter who made shots on the biggest stage, and it kind of overshadowed some inconsistency during the regular season last year. I have a couple surprises here in mind. Curbelo starting it, Buddy Boeheim, elite-level shooter, average about 18 a game. He's going to average 20 a game this year at Syracuse and probably shoot 40% from three. And I think he's better. He's not a one-trick pony. I think he's able to put the ball on the floor. He's gotten better at that. Chet Holmgren, no-brainer to me. Amani Bates, another guy that I know Rob had on his second team. And, he may struggle early with playing the point. Talked to Penny Hardaway about that, but he'll get better. I went Trevion Williams instead of Jaden Ivey, Robbie. I just think Matt Painter's a guy who wants to get the ball inside if he can. Now, again, you got two bigs there that are maybe going to share some of the production. And I had to give my boy Max Asmus some love there from Oral Roberts, a little guy who did it 3 25-point games in the NCAA tournament, the first guy since Steph Curry to do that. So he did it when it mattered the most.
Can you answer this, though, for me, Jeff? Why are you giving Asmus credit for his NCAA tournament performances, but then with Johnny Juzang, you're like, well, No,
because Asmus led the country.
What is the difference?
Scoring.
Juzang averaged last 6 games, 23 points a game, 50% from the field, 37 from three. Like, he did it in the biggest games of the year. So why does one guy get a pass and say, that's great, look what he did in the NCAA tournament, and others you're like, well, it was just covering inconsistencies. He was hot. As if that doesn't mean he's killing in the NCAA tournament.
Asmus led the country in scoring. He did it from start to finish, including the NCAA tournament throughout the season. When you look at the early season,
you pick and choose when it matters.
No, I'm
you
saying
do.
consistency.
And Rob does too. Dauster's doing the same crap on this stuff.
What do you, I have Juzang as a second team All-American. Like, I just think he's a slight notch below where you have him, and mostly it's because I really think Jaime Jaquez is an absolute stud.
No,
like,
you
so
go either way.
my Juzang take. There's no hate on Juzang. I just love Jaime Jaquez. Theo, before we get into your teams, real quick, Robbie, I just want to hear your take on Jaden Ivey versus Trevion Williams.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think that's something that's going to be an interesting conversation to have. We talked about this a little bit on the pod. Me and Theo did last week. I'm worried about Purdue's shooting, right? When they were real post heavy in 2016, 2017, 2018, they were the best 3-point shooting team, or at least one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country. I think they were 7th the year that they had Biggie Swanigan, and they were second nationally the year that they had Isaac Haas. Yeah. So talk to me about Jaden Ivey versus Trevion Williams, and kind of if you're concerned about the shooting with Purdue.
Yeah, I think that the shooting is certainly going to be the biggest thing. And you look at some of these guys, Eric Hunter, Sasha Stefanovic, that they're going to have to make some threes. Brandon Newman can factor into that equation. I think he's a good shooter. When you look at Jaden Ivey versus Trevion Williams, I do agree with Jeff that Zach Edey is going to cannibalize some of Trevion Williams' production. Yeah. And it's not because Trevion doesn't do it on a per 40-minute basis, because you throwing the ball in the block more often than not, he is going to get you a basket. He might be one of the best one-on-one scorers on the block in all of college basketball. I just think when you look at Jaden Ivey, the way he played in the under-19s internationally, he's part of the all-tournament team. He moves different than anybody on the floor when you watch Purdue play, when you watch the way he is capable of defending. Now, I think the question for him is, will he be an elite two-way player? Because you know he wants to score it. You know he's going to get to the rim. He's going to have some highlights that make you say, man, there's not many guys in not just the Big Ten, but all of college basketball who are going to make a play like Jaden Ivey just made. But I think for him to be special at a second-team All-American level, he's got to be an elite two-way player. And I think he's more than capable. But I think the question mark is, can he defend at that level when he's asked to do so? Because I know Matt Painter's going to demand that of him. You could go either way. If you put Trevion Williams out there, he certainly could be a guy that plays like that. Zach Edey has to be taken into account, but you could go either way. Jaden Ivey, Trevion Williams, I'd be with it.
I mean, the bottom line is they're both really, really good, which is part of the reason why Purdue has some really, really high expectations this year. T.O., let's get into your team. I'm really interested. None of us had a Kentucky player on it. And if I'm not mistaken, you have a Kentucky player somewhere on one of your teams. So take me through it and talk to me a little about your Kentucky love.
I do, and just go ahead and throw both those Purdue guys on there, because I have Trevion Williams on my first team and Jaden Ivey on my second team. But I don't see how in the world Kellen Grady doesn't get that nod. He fits what they're going to be doing perfectly. Cal's not going to have to coach him that much. Coming from Bob McKillop at Davidson, he already knows how to play without the ball, and he's really good both off the dribble and catch and shoot opportunities. And he's playing with Severe Wheeler, that transferred from Georgia, that averaged 7.5, 8 odd assists, something like that. I think he's going to fit perfectly. My shock, I'm going Alabama with Javon Quinterly. And the reason is he scored in double figures every game from February 1 on. And then he capped it off against Maryland in the second round of the NCAA tournament. He had 15 points, 11 assists, not to mention he was the SEC the MVP of the SEC tournament. And I think he's finally figured out what Nate Oates wants him to do. He can get anywhere he wants with the ball in his hands, and he's got shooting around him to where he's really going to be able to, get to the paint. There's going to be a lot of space there, and I think he's really going to benefit. And then on the second team, Kellen Grady, obviously, it says Davidson there. He's obviously at Kentucky now, but I just feel like the way that they're going to play with all the dribble drive action, you're not going to have to coach him to get to open spots. He's going to be a knockdown shooter. He's a mid-30s guy, but he's such a good scorer, and Kentucky's going to be back, and Kentucky's going to get so much attention anyway. That's why I think that he's going to end up being an All-American, because he's going to be that sound scorer for the duration of the season. And then Patrick Baldwin Jr., Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Consensus top 5 or 6 player in the country, 6'9". He's compared to Klay Thompson. I think that's a little bit nuts, but he can really shoot the basketball. He's playing with his dad, so he's going to get everything drawn up for him. He's going to average some serious numbers, and he's going to be in that conversation not only for freshman All-American, but I think All-American when all is said and done.
Jeff, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this Kentucky team when we were trying to put together these All-American teams and whether or not it was right to leave somebody off when you have a Kentucky team that's probably going to be as good as we expect them to be. Why no Kentucky players for you?
I just don't know who to put on there. That's the thing is Kellen Grady, you got so much competition at that wing spot. The guy I probably would go with the highest upside is Ty Washington. They're freshman who's kind of a scoring point guard. But I don't know. I mean, again, is Severe Wheeler going to be the one getting all the minutes? They've just got a lot of competition. Now, I will give you some love on the Quinterly pick because I talked to Nate Oates last night, and he said he's shooting the crap out of the ball and making all the right reads in practice so far. So he thinks Quinterly's going to have a huge year as well, and they're going to need him for Alabama to be really, really good and have a chance to to live up to the hype with them being a top 15 or so team.
And I think since Herb Jones is no longer there, he's going to have the ball even more in his hands. And he finally kind of understood the dynamic after, it took him 3 or 4 months to finally get in a rhythm. But once he got in a rhythm, man, he was dangerous.
Maybe 3 years. Maybe 3 years to get into
3 years.
Honestly, I mean, it did. He was the jelly fam, Jelly
I mean, he's going to put
the jelly fam out of the
burn the jelly. Get rid of the jelly.
Jeff, have you ever talked to a coach about a player preseason and they've been like, man, he's just kind of not been that good? Has that ever happened?
Yes. Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's never on the record. It's never on the record.
Off the record.
Hey, Rob, they will not be on one of my preseason All-American teams. So let's face it.
I do think Javon is going to put up huge numbers this season just because he's the point guard in a system that goes like this. Like all they want to do is run and spot up three. So he's gonna have huge numbers. I'm not 100% sold on Alabama being great and good enough for him to kind of get into that conversation, but the numbers are probably going to end up being there. Let's close this out by talking a little bit about Emoni Bates. I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think any of us had him as a preseason first-team All-American.
Second team.
I had him second, but I don't think anybody had him first team, which is I don't know if that's going to be a controversial thing. I don't know if that's something that's going to be a little bit kind of out of line with what consensus is, but I'm very intrigued to see how this experiment works out with Memphis and Jalen Duren and Emoni Bates and Penny and everything that's happening down there in Memphis. So, Robbie, take me through it a little bit. Why Emoni second team? Why not first team? And what are you kind of expecting out of that team this year?
Yeah, and I think that if you asked this question like a year ago, you'd be like, this is really controversial that no one has him on a first team if he's going to go to college. That was certainly a question, but I just think the opportunity is there. Alex Lomax has been solid, I guess you could say. Maybe not, maybe a little below solid. And Tyler Harris comes back to Memphis after going to Iowa State for a year. So the opportunity for him to play the point is certainly going to be there. And you look at his size, he's got a pretty good handle. I'm curious to see how he is as a decision maker at this level when you start seeing the scouting you're going to see and just how much game planning goes into it. But he can really score. He's really aggressive. He's really talented. And I think that this kind of goes to what Jeff was saying about Juwan Howard. Would there be anybody better to teach this dude how to be a point forward than Penny Hardaway? And now, Rasheed Wallace is there, and you also have Larry Brown there. I mean, he's got some incredible tools, some really, really good coaches, some great minds. So I just think when you throw all those things together on top of his talent and then also his team, I mean, their team is all of a sudden you're looking at them and you're like, man, these dudes, they have got some guys out here. And this is a big year for Memphis. Let's be real about that. Mm-hmm. 2 of the last 3 years, you go to the NIT, you win the NIT last year. This has to be an NCAA tournament team. And I think Penny Hardaway realizes that. And I just think when all is said and done, you look at this roster, I think Emoni Bates is going to get it done.
When we watched Emoni Bates play at the Peach Jam, there was no second level reads when it came to his passes. I mean, it's like getting into the paint, hitting the dump off, and that's pretty much it. And that's going to be significant because helps out of college. I mean, it's a lot different than what you're going to see at the Peach Jam. But I worry about putting him at the point guard because then you're taking away what he does best, and that's get buckets. Imani Bates is a bucket. And even though, with Tyler transfers down from Iowa State, he didn't win a game last year. He hasn't had any success. Lomax has been mediocre at best. Like, there's opportunity for him to be there, but is that the best thing for your team? And for a team that's been so good defensively, like Memphis over the past couple of seasons, they were the best defense. Dauster emphasized that to me in our podcast. They were the best defense in the country last year from an efficiency perspective. But offensively, this team needs to know how to score. Jalen Duren's not really that guy. Imani Bates can be that guy to go get a bucket for your team if you put him in the right spots. And if you don't play him at the point, if you play him at the point guard position, you're kind of taking him out of what he's really good at.
And he's also supposed to be a senior in high school. Like a lot of these guys that reclass are reclassing into what their grade was supposed to be. So they're someone that should have been a freshman in college already that is reclassifying into the grade that they were already supposed to be in. Imani's 17. He is so young. He's not going to be eligible until the 2023 NBA draft. That's how young he is. He really should be a senior in high school. And he's a kid where the talent is there. But I think the biggest thing that he's going to struggle with is the physicality. Like the dude weighs probably what, Jeff? A buck
183.
Yeah. So
183 was last time I talked to him.
He's really slender. So handling that toughness and the physicality of Division I college basketball, it's not an easy thing to do.
You guys have hit on all of it. Listen, you guys have hit on all of it. I talked to Penny earlier today, and what he said was, listen, he's going to see a lot of time at the point, but he's not going to be the only guy. We're not throwing him out on an island here, and he's our only point. When he's on the floor, he'll have help from whether it's Alex Lomax, DeAndre Williams. He'll have other guys who can take some of the pressure off him. But I do think he's going to be up and down early in his career because, again, never really played the position, not like he's going to do this year, 183 pounds, and he's got a lot of mouths to feed. So, like up here, it's going to be hard for him because the wheels are going to be spinning. Not only what's the correct play, but in his mind, he's going to be like, oh, shit, like I haven't gotten him the ball in a while. Or maybe he's not thinking that way. I don't know, but there's a lot to process for a point guard who's never really played the position and now is doing it with a lot of pressure on him. But I love his talent.
Can you bring that comment back up about Brandon Ingram real quick? Because I think that's actually an interesting thing that I do want to touch on real quick before we get out of here. Brandon Ingram developed into a guy that is one of the best kind of wing creators in the NBA right now. I think he averaged, 24, 5, and 5 for the Pelicans last season. But it's the kind of thing where Brandon Ingram was 6'10" with a 7'4" wingspan, something like that. You've seen everyone's seen the Imani Bates comparisons to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is I think he's listed at 6'9", but that dude is a 7-footer with a 7'5" wingspan, and probably the greatest shot maker of all time for somebody that's anywhere.
Well, Imani didn't grow in the last 2 years. He didn't grow. Yeah. He was 6'8" 2 years ago.
Yeah, so, but it's the wingspan, it's the height, it's the physicality. Like that dude is built to score. But it's not like he's stepping in and he's going to be an automatic finished project. He's 17 years old, right? I want to make sure that we emphasize this. So when he doesn't come out and average 28 a game, and people are like, "Oh, he's a bust," he's 17 years old.
No,
so
he averages 15.
14,
if he averages 15, 15 and 5, and the turnovers are, if he's got anywhere close to a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, he's had a hell of a year.
Yep, I agree. All right, guys, this has been fun. For the people that are watching right now, this is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are going to have this show live every night during the college basketball season. We are going to be recapping everything. It's going to be 11 p.m. Eastern time, talking about all the biggest games. We're going to have some of the biggest names in college basketball on the show with us. We're going to have live interaction. We're going to have players. We're going to have coaches. Hopefully, we're going to have live interviews in the locker room after games. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's going to be something that we try to do. Obviously, these gentlemen, Terrence Oglesby, Robbie Hummel, and Jeff Goodman are going to be on the show as well. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube. You follow us on Twitter, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, or you're watching this right now, just hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. It's really easy to do. You're going to be able to keep up with everything that we do on this channel. So we will see you guys again very, very soon. Thank you for tuning in. Gentlemen, this has been fun.
Definitely. See you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.